Good morning, everyone. Hello and welcome. We are having a conversation this morning about memory. And Alexis, lots of women complain about memory issues in their 40s and 50s, right?
Absolutely, myself included.
And what was for you? What was why did it bother you?
Um, okay, lots of reasons. On a day-to-day level, you're in the middle of a conversation. I can't think of a word. I can't think of a name. Well, not thinking of names is not unusual for me, but being able to recall things, basic facts, the name of your husband, like it's, things, and then that became scary.
Yeah.
It went from
Yeah.
being kind of funny to one day thinking, this is kind of scary. Am I suffering? Is this the beginning signs of Alzheimer's disease? Is it something else going on? Is this something I should be worried about? So yeah, and it
And
oscillated between being funny and scary.
I don't think you're alone with that one. I felt the same, but I had a bad memory for most of my adult life, I think. It wasn't unusual for me to have a difficulty recalling details. For one, I'm a bigger picture person anyway,
Mm.
but I think I had, I was self conscious. And
Yeah.
so whenever I was in conversation and I had to remember the storyline or, the joke line, I never really, I kind of retreated into myself, into my snail cave, and then the whole memory thing didn't really get a workout. So what I've
Makes sense.
recognized is there's this difference between possible unhealthy reasons why our memory might be affected, and then there's just that the muscle hasn't been honed as
But
well.
yes, and also I understand that during menopause, the hormonal changes cause changes in the brain, like physical changes in the brain, and therefore our ability to recall and to
Yeah,
exercise that memory muscle. And I
yeah,
also found, Brenda, just going back, as you were saying, when you're in that conversation and you lose your train of thought, um, and then it's, I mean, it's a bit of a
yeah,
conversation buzz killer.
yeah. It's almost classic,
Mm,
that the menopausal woman can't remember the name. I actually think that
mm,
from a big picture view, our brain goes, and yes, it does rewire, and we are no longer estrogen driven. That's withdrawing, and then other hormones take over, and that rewires the brain. But why, my kind of interest is, okay, so you're healthy, your blood sugars are good, your bowels are good, you're not toxic, you're not sensitive, you're not, all these things, you're not taking any drugs. What's the ultimate purpose of nature for changing our memory at midlife?
mm,
What could
mm.
be behind that? What are the benefits? Because, we have pregnancy memory, and that has to do with brain changes as well. And so I haven't actually got a definitive answer to that. I think that there's a shift in perspective going on that makes us
Absolutely.
more conscious of the world bigger than us.
Mm,
That really
mm,
affects memory, I'm not so sure. But you're right. The other thing that happens to the brain at menopause, apparently, I've learned recently actually, is that
mm.
instead of being fed by glucose, it switches over to ketones. And that
Yes,
takes a
which
few
is
years to
really
really,
interesting.
yeah, so there's a lot going on, isn't there?
There is a lot going on. Can I just take you back, Brenda? You were saying that, your blood sugar levels are balanced, your liver's working, you're not suffering from deficiencies. Are these other reasons that you can have? Did you mention those because there are other reasons that you can have? Okay, all right. So
Yeah,
there's
yeah.
the physical. How would you put that?
Well, what happens for a lot of women at menopause is that it's a bit of a catch-up time, a bit of a wake-up call. And you can, if you haven't been looking after yourself for a while, because estrogen's protective,
Yeah.
suddenly estrogen goes away and your bad blood sugars come out and your liver's not working very well, and that couple of extra drinks that you're having every day, we're just more sensitive to that.
So we become, okay, so that therefore affects us in a more negative way.
Yeah.
We get away with less. We
Get away with
less
less.
bad behavior. Okay.
Which is why the doctors and the medical professionals say that our risk of osteoporosis or heart disease or cancer increases because estrogen was protecting us.
Yeah.
And so it's like, no, you can't do so much of that anymore. You've got to clean up your act. And that can be a bit tricky.
And it's a good time to, I guess, check in and see what your risks are at that point in time. Because if you're saying it's a time where we're more affected by it, presumably it's also a time where you can do something about it, that you can clean up your lifestyle habits and your diet and positively affect. And memory, I guess, is one symptom. So perhaps if your memory is starting to, or your loss of memory is starting to kick in, that is a time to sort of get a bit of a health check happening.
I think so. I think that we can't really ignore these they're not life-threatening, but they're potentially lifestyle-threatening. And that's a good place in your life to look for natural and holistic approaches, because, you're not in the emergency room and you don't want to be, right? And that what you're doing on a daily basis is having a big impact, a really big on your brain function. If you're not eating enough protein, then the brain struggles to create the neurotransmitters, or if you're drinking too much, maybe the liver's not processing toxins out of your blood quickly enough. So all these things are little messages from the body to do something.
So what would be, can you define that? You mentioned too there, the proteins, which is obviously part of the diet. It's cleaning up the diet. I would take that as being a nutritionist, I would take that as a bigger picture, getting your macronutrients as well as your micronutrients in balance. What would be your top three, and this might be an unfair question to get you to define it down to three, but okay, let's do it another way. How could women start? Where could they start? Where have you found in the clinic situation that has had the biggest needle movers, the biggest impact on, and as we're talking about memory, about improving memory?
Well, actually, the simplest thing is making sure you have enough water. Dehydration causes memory loss.
Oh, there you go.
Dehydration makes it more difficult to recall information, and you tend to stumble over your words more. So, and dehydration is very common.
Absolutely. And especially in winter, funnily enough.
Yeah.
Especially Australian, where you're in Australia at the moment, and particularly Australian winters. I was trying not to pick up my glass of water that's sitting right here. It's a lot more drying, and we don't realise that a lot of people become more dehydrated in the winter rather than in the summer, where we tend to be sweating and reaching for more glasses of water. But of course, a lovely way of doing that is through herbal teas. It doesn't just have to be cold water. It can be.
Sometimes we don't want the cold water.
Okay.
I think it's.
Is there something else that you're burning to talk about, to mention before we wrap up? Just if there's anything else that you're burning. Talk about stumbling over words. Burning to mention about memory and menopause.
Well, when I work with people, I like to give them lots of options. And I was talking about memory in a webinar during the week, and we got into discussions about, using essential oil. Oh, that's
sorry.
Using essential oils, There's great herbs that really reduce the stress levels, so you can think better.
Mm.
As a as the
Can we
whole
do a
menopause.
whole chat on that at some point?
Yeah, write that down.
Okay,
Um,
great.
there's some great hormone balancing herbs like Vitex and licorice that really need some explanation around them because they're not always appropriate for
Mm,
different people.
sure.
Zinc is another thing. There's nutritional things, as you would know. There's foods to avoid. There's foods to have. Making sure that you look at the body and try and work out what it's indicating. Like low energy, you might be low in iron, and then bringing that into the diet with certain
Mm,
foods. Um, and I suppose for me, the biggies are water, food, and then mindfulness, being present in your body. Those three
mm.
things, the triangle, works really well.
Okay, can we? Okay, I can feel some really lovely chats coming up. I think we've got some great topics there to expand on. It'd be wonderful. And in the meantime, what I'll do is again pop that. Brenda, can I pop your questionnaire and your health check into the chat below this, which also allows people to sign up to your newsletter, and then they
Yeah.
can get onto your mailing list for all your webinars and being able to pop into these chats as well.
Yeah, thank you. That would be great.
Beautiful. Excellent.
I'm
Brenda,
enjoying this. Thank you. Loving having a
lovely.
conversation with another nutritionist. And then when
Oh,
we get questions from our audience as well, post your questions in the chat. We'd love to have them.
excellent. Beautiful. Until next time. Thank you, Brenda.